In 2077, in futuristic South Korea, advances in genetic technology have transformed the country, thanks to the mega corporation called Medusa. However, it wasn't long before allegations of illegal tests involving human beings began to surface and the corporation became a target for the authorities. Because of this, the International Security Union sent Agent Wu, known as Ghost, to investigate the case. She found out about the creation of a type of fluid capable of modifying the human genetic code, conferring great abilities, both physical and mental. However, the agent was eventually discovered, and as well as being captured, she became guinea pig number 166, and the genetic fluid was applied to her body. According to the data analyzed on Medusa's computer, the genetic fusion was a success and she will soon be ready for new tests. Then, in the middle of the laboratory, a group of armed agents, led by Fat Man, burst in and shoot at the scientists. Once the area is secure, he begins to rescue Wu, as well as collecting a chip with information about the experiments. After collecting this evidence, Fat Man goes to Agent Ghost, who awakens from her sleep and leaves with the rest of the group. They return her combat sword and are about to leave the lab when a mutant creature appears and advances towards the group. The agents unload their pistols at the monster, but the bullets do no damage and it strikes back with its tentacles. The surviving scientists try to escape, but are also targeted by the mutant, who swallows them alive. Ghost then takes advantage of the creature's distraction and jumps on its back, delivering several sword blows. Fat Man then throws his pistol at her, and catching it in midair, the agent shoots at the creature, but again it remains standing and unleashes its tentacles towards Wu. With her skill, she cuts the tentacles with her blade, but in the middle of the battle Ghost begins to feel ill. The genetic fluid seems to be having a side effect, but there's no time to lose and Agent Fat Man carries his colleague to the exit, leaving the monster trapped in the laboratory. In the middle of the escape, a white-haired young woman called Angela gets in the way and creates a mental projection. She invades the minds of the fugitives, leaving Fat Man and Ghost immobilized. Fortunately, Wu manages to get rid of the illusion and helps Fat Man regain consciousness. His colleague thanks him for his help, and armed with a dagger, he advances towards Angela, but the young woman teleports to his back and throws him away. Ghost tries to help him, but the agent hands her the chip and tells her to run, while he stays to delay his opponent. With no other choice, the agent obeys and Fat Man challenges Angela to a second round, but again takes a beating and is knocked to the ground. Seeing that Fat Man is in danger, Wu goes back and tries to help him, exchanging quick punches and kicks against Angela. However, she too is defeated, and just when all seemed lost, the genetic fluid in Ghost's body begins to react, with a counter printed on his arm showing 10%. The next morning, Lee Yongshin, the manager of the Medusa Corporation, has just arrived at his office, where he finds Fat Man seriously injured. The agent accuses the tycoon of carrying out illegal experiments, transforming human beings into powerful mutants with his genetic fluid. Lee's aim is to use the mutants in a combat challenge until only one is left alive, known as the Battle of Tomorrow. The fighters are classified into categories, with categories ranging from Class D to Level S, where the mutant reaches the peak of its potential. At this moment, Guinea Pig number 165 is facing a powerful opponent with the ability to move objects using telepathy. Thanks to this ability, he lifts Guinea Pig 165 and slams her to the ground, leaving the prisoner seriously injured. However, the blows awaken the genetic fluid and the guinea pig manifests the power to absorb rocks from the ground, creating a powerful gauntlet. She then counterattacks with a punch and then lifts all the rocks into the sky, forming a kind of meteorite and hurls it towards her opponent. At the end of the fight, Guinea Pig 165 is considered a level A mutant and will be one of the main fighters in the Battle of Tomorrow. After watching everything, Lee turns his attention to Fat Man and asks where he is from and where he hid the data chip. Fat Man refuses to say, and in response the tycoon eliminates him with a blow to the neck. Far away, Wu wakes up in a hotel room, where she sees a young resident who asks her if she's all right. However, the agent throws a punch that causes the man to be thrown against the wall, and she flees, ending up in Chinatown. Minutes later, the young man in the room returns and introduces himself as Zhou Yang, and he tries to warn Wu that she is in danger. Again, she has no idea who he is and punches him once more, but as she does so, time seems to freeze around her. Confused about what's going on, Wu sees a worker about to be crushed by an iron plate, and suddenly manages to teleport and pull him out. As soon as time returns to normal, Wu has no idea how she did it, and to make matters worse, a group of ninjas appear and try to attack her. With her new ability, the agent dodges the attacks and counterattacks with punches and kicks at superhuman speed. After she finishes them all off, Yang once again calls Wu back to the apartment, revealing that he is a private investigator. The two then return home, but as soon as they enter, Young pulls a pistol on the agent, demanding to know who she really is. However, Woo uses her super speed to remove the bullet from the gun, and in a few seconds, disassembles his weapon. The guy suspects that all of Woo's skill isn't just due to secret agent training and asks what happened. Woo says she doesn't remember the night before, and Young suspects that because she's a secret agent, she must be under programmed amnesia so as not to leak information. He also reveals that he found her dumped in a sewer and brought her back home, but couldn't find her identity anywhere on the internet. The two of them continue looking for more details about her on the computer, until Woo finds the chip stolen from the lab in her clothes. Young soon discovers that it's a chip with very advanced encryption, and it will be a long time before they find out what's inside it. Suddenly, two policemen knock on the door and Woo hides while Young goes to answer them. They say they're looking for a woman who confronted several ninjas the night before, but Young disguises it by saying he's just woken up and didn't see anything happen in the street. The policeman insists on questioning him, but Woo poses as Yang's girlfriend and calls him back to continue their romantic evening. The cops believe the hoax, and even though they're curious to see what's going on inside the room, they leave the couple alone. The plan has worked and Woo is uncomfortable with the whole farce, but Young can barely disguise the satisfaction on his face. However, the conversation is interrupted when suddenly a huge stone gap is thrown through the window, and the two are narrowly missed. Seconds later, guinea pig number 165 appears at the front door, calling Woo her big sister. Young remembers the girl's face on the news and her real name, Choi Yuxi, who had been missing for days. Like Woo, she was also a victim of the experiments, and now that she is under Medusa's control, she orders the two of them to hand over the data chip. Woo refuses and the two enter into a duel, manifesting their powers to balance the confrontation. Seeing that her rival is stronger than she expected, Choi takes the battle into the city, with Woo following her with her power of teleportation. Eventually, the two meet in an abandoned building and Choi invokes her ability to cover her arm with rocks. Despite dodging the attacks, Woo is hit by the stone gauntlet and pushed against the wall. Not satisfied, Choi throws several rocks in her direction and finishes with a punch, sending Woo crashing through the floors of the building and onto the ground. Nearby, Lee Yongshin observes everything through a hologram and shows the results of the experiment to one of his investors, Mr. Wong. However, the guy says he's looking for S-level mutants, not A-level fighters like them, calling Medusa's mutants mere trash. Lee is offended by this and responds to the provocation by using the power of telekinesis to hit Wong with several sharp pens. Meanwhile, the duel between the two mutants continues and Choi takes the upper hand, trapping Woo in a bag and slamming her against the walls. The agent is at the end of her tether and Choi prepares for the final blow, but Young appears on the scene and hands over the chip in exchange for Woo's life. He then sets off to help the agent, but the blows she has suffered awaken her potential, with the counter on her arm increasing to 30%. Woo regenerates and starts attacking Choi much harder, giving her opponent no chance to defend herself. Before receiving the final blow, Choi reveals that she didn't intend to eliminate her older sister, but to help her become stronger, as she is the only one capable of taking on the Medusa Corporation. Unfortunately, this act of betrayal ends up triggering the self-destruct command, with Choi losing her life in Woo's arms. Afterwards, the agent faints from the effort, but Young holds her in his arms and takes her back to the apartment. Faced with this defeat, Lee goes to talk to Angela, who has changed her look, wearing the clothes of a schoolgirl. He warns her that Choi has failed in her mission and demands that the coordinator of the mutant project resolve the situation and recover the chip as soon as possible. Angela is undeterred and pays little heed to her colleague's orders, who, in the face of her defiance, threatens to attack her. However, the two are interrupted by a video call revealing the true leader of the organization, Lord L. He orders the two of them to capture Wu Qingqing, as her potential is greater than that of all the guinea pigs and he needs her alive for the battle of tomorrow. Back at the apartment, Young takes Wu to Auntie Mei, one of the residents, who uses a medicine capable of reviving the girl. Wu regains consciousness and is relieved to learn that Young has brought the data chip with him. However, they still need to decipher its encryption and find a way back to Medusa's laboratory, in the hope that Wu will recover her memory. Thanks to his knowledge as an investigator, Young says they can find answers at the local nightclub. Later, the two go there disguised as civilians, and look for the boss of the establishment, as they know he sells doses of the genetic fluid. Over the course of the evening, they manage to speak to one of the goons, who takes Wu to his boss, while Young is barred by the bouncers. Finally, the agent meets the eccentric boss of the nightclub, who looks more like a cosplay of the Joker. Wu proposes a deal to get some of the fluid, showing the meter on her arm, which shows only 3% energy. She hopes to find a way to break into the Medusa organization, but instead of helping her, the criminal handcuffs her to an iron bar. In addition, he sends his henchmen to broadcast a video around the nightclub, indicating that Wu is there and the reward offered for her capture. On the other side of the room, Yang sees everything, and fearing that Wu is in danger, he stops the guards and runs after her. But before he can get there, Wu attacks the nightclub boss with a series of kicks and manages to break free of the handcuffs. The criminal laughs at the situation, as he knows she won't be able to escape, but Wu just throws 2 bottles at the man's head, who falls unconscious to the floor. Seconds later, Yang appears and sees the fallen criminal, so he hurries to collect the genetic fluid samples and takes Wu out of the nightclub. Later, the two of them return to the apartment and use the fluid on Wu to recharge her energy. Now that they have a sample of the fluid, Wu decides to go to Medusa's forbidden hospital. The next morning, Yang accompanies her there, and using his investigator's badge, manages to open access to the hospital. Inside, Wu begins to see memories of the past, and using hologram technology, she goes back to the moment when she first went to the hospital. As well as seeing Angela in the video recordings, Wu remembers her partner Fat Man, who warns her not to trust anyone. The two continue to investigate the hospital, until they find a recognition device in one of the walls. To his surprise, Wu manages to open a secret door with her fingerprint and moves on, until she comes across the same laboratory where she received the genetic fluid. Her memories soon resurface and Wu remembers when she was summoned to carry out the mission to investigate the Medusa laboratory. Even her name, Wu Qingqing, was forged for this mission, as was her codename, Ghost. Wu then remembers everything, and suddenly a hologram screen appears in front of her, with a message from Angela. She introduces herself as the coordinator of Medusa's experiments and tells Wu to come to Chinatown, bringing the chip with her, otherwise she'll wipe out all the residents. Yang tells them both to obey and assembles another identical suitcase to serve as a disguise, while the real one is delivered to the international agency. However, now that she has recovered her memories, Wu is only interested in taking Medusa's evidence and leaving the investigation to one side. On hearing this, Yang doesn't like Wu's selfish attitude and heads off to Chinatown, carrying the fake suitcase. Wu feels guilty about this, but soon gets in touch with her captain and hands him the suitcase. With the mission accomplished, Wu is free to leave, but the agent asks about Fat Man. The captain only replies that he lost his life in service and that his sacrifice was made for a greater purpose. Seeing that the agency is willing to sacrifice as many lives as necessary to fulfill the mission, Wu begins to rethink her actions. Meanwhile, Yang goes to Chinatown, where he receives a visit from Angela, accompanied by more ninja soldiers. She asks where Wu is and Yang replies that the agent has left, but lo and behold, Wu appears with her sword and a combat suit. Yang is happy to see her again and Wu says she still has a mission to complete. Angela then challenges her to a fight, with everything being recorded live by Li Yangshan for his future investors. The battle begins, with Angela sending out her army of ninjas, but with her super speed, the agent eliminates them one by one in a matter of seconds. However, when Wu looks back, she sees Yang being surrendered by Angela, who, with a frightening look on her face, plunges a knife straight into his heart. Furious, Wu sets out to confront Angela, but she surprises her by blocking her attacks and striking back with blades to her body. Despite the wound, Wu pulls out her dagger and strikes back, but this has no effect, as Angela shows a high capacity for regeneration. She then continues to hit Wu with the knife, but this ends up awakening her potential even more, with the counter showing a power of 40%. Thanks to this, Wu releases a burst of psychic energy, pushing Angela away. Her opponent soon recovers from the attack, but just as Angela did with Yang, Wu rushes her from behind and strikes her neck with the dagger. This time, not even her regeneration is fast enough to stop the bleeding and Angela falls to the ground lifeless. This result surprises everyone, especially Li, who wasn't expecting such a quick victory. The guests comment on the matter, saying that the guinea pig is an S level, but she doesn't seem to be under Medusa's control. Li tries to explain himself, but one of the investors accuses him of creating a dangerous weapon and the tycoon throws him away with his telekinesis. Meanwhile, in Chinatown, Wu tries to help Yang, but his wound is too serious and he is losing blood fast. In his final moments, Yang says he regrets not being able to take her to see a movie together once the situation has been resolved. Finally, Yang can't resist and loses his life in Wu's arms, who is seized by an uncontrollable rage. However, the challenge isn't over yet and Li sends a video message, saying that thanks to her performance in the fight, she has been invited to join the Medusa organization. Li Yangshan ends the message by saying that he will be waiting at the Medusa house and Wu promptly goes there. When night falls, the agent enters the huge mansion, where she is greeted by yet another army of ninjas. Just as before, she finishes off her opponents in a second and continues in search of Li Yongxin. When she arrives in the main hall, the manager of the organization has just surrendered all the investors and invites the agent into his business, which will soon dominate the entire world. However, Wu isn't interested in this and just wants revenge for what happened to Yang. So, with her super speed, she advances towards Li and the two engage in an intense fight, with the guests fleeing the place to save themselves. Using her sword, Wu tries to end the fight quickly, but Li proves to be even stronger than Angela, anticipating all her attacks. The agent tries another blow with the blade, but Li blocks it with his telekinesis and disarms her, throwing the sword away. He then pushes Wu himself with his power, throwing her against the wall and the columns of the mansion. Finally, he presses down on the agent, who, despite trying to resist, can't break free and loses consciousness. At that moment, Wu relives another memory, this time of the night she was found by Yang. She still didn't remember anything, but she was taken care of by the investigator, who that same night also invited her to watch a movie together. Wu accepted the invitation, but with the loss of Yang, she knows that this promise can never be kept. This only fuels her desire for revenge and she awakens, with the counter on her arm increasing to 50% potential. Stronger than ever, Wu frees herself from Li's psychic power, and with her hypersonic speed, she attacks the villain, giving him no chance to defend himself. The man is bewildered, and no matter how hard he tries, he can't locate Wu, who continues to attack him with powerful blows. Finally, she pushes him towards an altar in the room, and in a last-ditch effort, Li breaks all the windows and throws the pieces of glass at Wu. However, she passes through them without difficulty and reappears behind the villain, hitting the sword on his back and emerging victorious from the fight. A few days later, Wu is in Yang's apartment, listening to the news about the investigations into the Medusa organization. Although she has managed to defeat two of its greatest representatives, the real leader is still alive and will soon be coming after her. Suddenly, the young woman sees someone coming through the door, none other than Yang, who shows the same percentage counter on his arm. Apparently, he was also a victim of the experiments in the Medusa laboratory, and thanks to this, he managed to survive the injury. With the two of them possessing the genetic fluid, they promised to continue fighting the organization, and also to fulfill their agreement to watch a movie soon. Then, using the alias Ghost, Wu contacts her captain, asking for permission to continue her investigations. Permission is granted, and Wu, observing the city from the top of a building, raises her hands and disappears into thin air, setting off in search of her target. Little does she know that Lord L is still in his hiding place and reveals that he has the same face as Li Yongxin, indicating that the Medusa manager was just a clone. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.